Hello, everyone. It's time to get started. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Exceptional Customer Service, Why Offer It and How to Undertake It. I'm your moderator, Elise Schaefer, editor of Feed and Grain magazine. So once again, I want to thank you all for spending part of your day with Feed and Grain. And I especially want to thank today's sponsor, Willinga. With more than 60 years of experience, Willinga offers a portfolio of feed transportation and pneumatic transportation solutions. You can learn more about Willinga at willinga.com. And now I'll introduce our speaker, Dr. John Foltz. Dr. John Foltz is the co-author of our popular column, Manager's Notebook, in Feed and Grain magazine. He is also chair of the Department of Animal Sciences at The Ohio State University in Columbus, Ohio. And he's here today to talk about a topic that impacts all businesses across the country, customer service and customer retention. So, John, without further ado, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks very much, Elise, and hello to all of you folks out there in webinar land. For those of you that have not experienced Zoom before, I hope you're enjoying the experience. I will tell you, as a faculty member and department chair at Ohio State, there are days that I spend 5 and 6 hours on Zoom. Today is not one of those, so this is my only Zoom meeting today. But appreciate the opportunity to visit with you a little bit about a topic that I feel very passionate about, and that's exceptional customer service. And when Elise asked me to talk about this, I don't think she knew that it is actually one of my favorite topics. I've co-written the column that Elise talked about, Management Book, for almost 30 years. And we talk about a lot of different management strategies and ideas, and hopefully we touch on some that many of you find valuable in your feed and grain business. But exceptional customer service, or customer service in general, I like for the very fact that it doesn't cost hardly anything. And in fact, many of the things that I'm going to talk about here today will cost you absolutely nothing. It just takes a mindset of yourself as a manager or an employee at an elevator or a feed mill to move forward with kind of a mindset of how we're going to serve and best meet our customers' needs. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you think about offering exceptional customer service, why you might want to consider doing it, and how to undertake it. So the next slide here lists a couple of ideas that I have in terms of to set the stage, if you will. So I don't know if you've ever looked at your feed and grain business as if you were a new customer. You know, how would you like to be served as a customer? What do you like when you get from other businesses? Do your employees go out of their way to do maybe the little things that make a difference to the customer experience? And then finally, if you were a customer, would you do business with your business? And what sort of things would you like to have offered? And how would you like to be treated? So I'm going to start today with a little bit of a story. So I lived out in Idaho for almost 30 years. For those of you, maybe there's some on the webinar today that live out in the West. You may be familiar with Les Schwab. They're a tire business. And so you go, okay, great. Yeah, buy my tires, come in, get my snow tires put on. But the story I'm going to share with you, I think, exhibits the type of customer service that goes way above and beyond. So I was going to go on a flight. It was early morning. I had to leave home, I think, at about 3:30. It was snowing pretty good. I had about a half hour or 45-minute drive to the airport. And about halfway there, I noticed that my car was pulling to the right. I stopped. I got out. I looked. Oh, my gosh, the tire is starting to go flat. So I headed on down the road, got to the town where the airport was. I pulled into a gas station and couldn't fill up with the air because I didn't have any change. It was one of those where you had to put 50 cents in the air compressor to run it. So I got change from the guy who was there at about the tire, drove to the airport and parked, got on my plane and headed off to where I wanted to go. But what was in my mind was, I'm going to come back to a flat tire. I was not real excited about calling my wife and having her come to the airport and change the tire. So I called Les Schwab. I had done this with Les Schwab for over 20 years, but it was not the dealership near where the airport was. So I called them and I explained the situation. They said, "Where's your car parked?" I told them. They said, "We'll take care of it." I come back from my trip, go to the car. Sure enough, the tire is fixed. It's full of air. And I called them up. And I said, "Wow, that's awesome. You guys not only came out and did it, how much do I owe you?" And they said, "Nothing. You're a customer of ours and we took care of it for you." I was just floored. I mean, it handled a problem for me. They did it for free and they had a customer for life. And so I had done business with them. I now live back in Ohio. There are no Les Schwab tire dealerships here, but I will tell you that I have several other stories related to that particular business that make me always felt good about doing business with them because, in my opinion, they always went the extra mile. Their employees hustled. They had a smile on their face, and I was happy to promote their business. So that's the sort of customer service that we're talking about. And so for your business, what are the outcomes of exceptional customer service? Why should you consider ramping up the value that you provide for your customers? Well, it's increased customer retention. It's kind of free advertising. So the type of advertising that I just shared with you about Les Schwab Tire could be had in your business because people talk. And if they're treated well, they will tell others. And ultimately, that leads to increased sales for your business. And that's true whether you're a grain elevator and you're taking grain in from farmers. How do you get them to do business with your business? Or if you're in the feed business and you're retailing feed, all of those things relate to treating customers exceptionally so that they continue to do business with you and tell others about their good experience. So what are some of the strategies that you can employ to help improve this customer service level? So one of the things that you can do is work with employees to pay attention to detail. So I work at a university, but I have an administrative staff. Our Department of Animal Sciences here at Ohio State has about 120 employees, but I have administrative staff that take care of scheduling rooms and assisting our faculty with purchasing items. And we have 11. We've got to buy feed. We've got to buy equipment. We've got to do all of those sort of things. And what I try to impress upon our administrative staff is your customers are faculty and students within our department. I want you to have a customer service orientation so that you help them do their job. So another strategy to employ is to empower your employees to do the right thing to assist customers. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then finally, at the end of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about ways to incorporate strategic customer service into your feed and grain firm's strategy. So ultimately, it comes down to kind of the question that I posed there: how can you help? Obviously, you're helping and selling your product to your customers, but how do you raise that level of customer service? So the next two slides have a couple of graphics that I'll explain in a minute here. So what are some of the costs of bad customer service? So this was taken, it's not a perfect fit for the feed and grain business. It's for maybe a retail company that has a call center or something like that. But poor attention to detail, inexperienced people that don't know how to handle a person's problem. But I want you to pay attention to two of the circles there where 78% of customers ended a business relationship due to bad service. That's one of the costs of not having good customer service. And 61% of customers went to a competitor due to bad service. So those are numbers from different industries, but I think they're representative of the cost of not having good customer service. And if people feel that they've been mistreated, they're very likely to leave. So what then is the value of providing good customer service? So good customer service is personalization and being responsive and making sure that your employees are competent and things convenient for your customers. So 9 out of 10 US consumers say that they would pay more to ensure a good customer experience, and 70% of customers will do business with you to resolve a complaint. So the bottom graphic there, what can be done: hire competent people, be proactive about responding, personalize the customer experience, and then that provide multi-channel support that just, have a variety of people that reach out to your customers, whether it's your bulk feed driver or one of your people that are taking samples of grain coming into your elevator. And so talk to them all about things that they can be positive, cheerful, and finding ways to assist your customers to make them happy about doing business with your business. This next graph is one that there are some studies that have shown that, and many of you know this, it's much easier to keep an existing customer than to find a new customer. We call that the acquisition cost of a new customer, and that can be 6 to 7 times more expensive than keeping an existing customer. Existing customers are also more likely to buy more from you than new customers. And so there's a variety of reasons for you to try to keep these existing customers, and all of that boils down to providing good customer experience. So let's look at that, current customers versus new customers. The probability of successfully selling more to current customers is about 3 times higher than selling to people that have not done business with your company previously. And improving customer retention by as little as 5% can boost your bottom line by as much as 95%. And I've provided a couple of references for both of those statements. Elise indicated that this is being recorded, and I think they will also make the slide set available to people, but you can look at both of those references. The second reference was from the Harvard Business School, and they did a study and said, wow, if you keep people, really a lot of that will go straight to your bottom line. So what is it that customers want from a customer service standpoint? So an easy way to figure that out is to just ask them. So you can ask them in person when they're in your business, or you can do a survey. And we'll talk about a little bit what you might want to ask them here in just a minute. But there are numerous ways that you can gather this data via the internet. So you can do a paper survey if you want to do a short Xerox survey that you stick in with a bill. That's easy. Or create an internet link. So there's a number of online survey companies that are available. Many of them are free. Qualtrics costs, but SurveyMonkey is free. And in fact, in researching some of the background for this presentation, I came across a great resource. SurveyMonkey has an online guide to running a customer feedback program. And I've provided the link in the slideshow here, but it is well worth looking at. They go through why you want to do it, questions that you might want to ask. They give great examples. I was very impressed. Obviously, it drives business to their business, but it is a good way of finding out how are you doing with your customers and what do they want from you. So continuing on that line of thinking, what would you want to ask them? So I've listed some ideas here for your possible customer survey. So are there additional things that your business can do? product lines or services that you might provide. Will they plan on continuing to do business with you again? Yes or no? If not, why? Do they have some complaints? And you may list some things that you sometimes hear, and you may provide an open-ended question where they can fill in the blank. And then how much better or worse has each customer's experience been over the past 6 months? And that leads into the next slide where we're going to talk about, I would suggest, and studies show that you should not just do a customer service survey just once. You should do it on an ongoing basis. So you should ask them regularly. So McKinsey, the consulting firm, indicates that if you measure your customer's sentiment throughout their lifetime, if you will, which they call the customer life cycle, or throughout the year, once or twice, that is 30% more predictive of your customer's satisfaction than just evaluating how they feel at one point in time. And they go on to say that organizations that measure the entire life cycle see a 20% increase in customer satisfaction and up to a 15% increase in revenue. So why would that be? It's partly that you're paying attention to what they're saying, and psychologically, the customer will say they're interested in my business, they're interested in what I have to say, and they're interested in improving the service that they provide to me. All of those things increase customer satisfaction, increase customer service and retention, and will improve your bottom line. So some of the keys that I would propose to help out with customer service are to-do list. And the bottom line point of this is, how do you make customers feel important? One of the key ways to do that is to treat them as individuals. And for our long-term customers, that's really easy. But I'll give you an example. In the classroom, one of the ways that I always tried to provide customer service was to learn students' names. To some people, that doesn't come easy, but the second week of class, I always took a picture of all of my students. I put them where they sat on a folder, and I would memorize the name. You know, in a feed and grain business, when you get a new customer, find out about them. Commit to memory the name and a little bit of their background about their information. And in small communities, we many times know of people and know about them, but learn about them so that you can treat them as individuals and use their name. And then find out ways to compliment your customers and make sure that you do it with sincerity. And so, how do you do that? Well, you just need to impress upon your employees that, be sincere with your compliments. And it brings up one of the questions that was sent in previously that I was going to touch on in this presentation. How do you make customers feel good when you're having a bad day? And there's no real easy way to do that. Sometimes you got to fake it until you make it. And so put on a good face, put on a positive attitude, and hopefully that will improve your day, but it will certainly improve your customer's day. And you don't want to come off as kind of fakey, like, oh, have a nice day. I mean, be sincere about it, and share with your employees that you want to be sincere with your compliments and be positive about dealing with our customers. So one easy way to do that, to be sincere, is to thank customers for their business at every chance you get. I know many of you do that when they come into your business. Thank you for your business, but you cannot do it too often because it makes customers feel good about doing business with you. So when you see them in person, I listed old-fashioned thank you notes or holiday cards. And then here's one that might be a little out there, but if some of you appreciate humor like I do, there are some very unique holidays. And so I've listed where you might find some of these unique holidays. But how about if you sent out a card saying, thanks for your business and thanks for helping us celebrate National Spaghetti Day, which is January 4th. Or how about World Beard Day on September 5th for those of us that wear beards, or even if your customers don't. But that list, very interesting holidays, and it might make a funny statement, but a sincere statement with some of your customers. So check it out. And it makes it even better if it's handwritten. It doesn't have to be a paragraph. It can just be thanks for your business, appreciate it, and sign your name and be done. So another way that you can ramp up customer service is to turn customer mistakes into unforgettable experiences. So typically, how do we handle problems that customers have? Oh, hey, sorry, that's your problem. We can't help you out. Turn tradition on its head. Get your employees to not complain about it, but I grew up being a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout. The Boy Scouts motto is do a good turn daily. And so impress that upon your employees. Let your employees know if they see an opportunity to fix a customer's mistake to benefit your company's image, they should have your permission to do that. So in some cases, it may cost you a little bit, but if you go that extra mile, like my initial example, it costs Les Schwab time, effort, and employee costs to go out and fix my flat tire. But it guaranteed that they had my business for life, at least while I lived in Idaho. And so you have to balance that. There is some costs associated with that. And I indicated at the beginning of this webinar that customer service could be done without a lot of cost. Much of that's true. You have to balance cases like this where it does actually cost you a little bit. So there are some other ways that you might consider ramping up customer service. One is to maybe start a reward program. And you may think, wow, I can't do that in the feed and grain business like they do in the airline business. In the airline business, they pay you with frequent flyer miles that can be redeemed for flights. Well, you can put on your thinking cap. Oftentimes, have a loyalty dinner for customers, longtime customers. That's one way, and that's a traditional way, and it's appreciated. But maybe get creative. Maybe your loyal long-term customers that do business with you on a regular basis get entered into a drawing for a free weekend getaway, and they get more entries based on the volume of business that they do with you. You could also work with some of your suppliers to offer, offer home office trips or tours for loyal customers. That helps to make sure that they are connected to your business and to your supplier. I know when I worked for Ralston Purina, we would invite companies to St. Louis and let them go through our research facilities so that they could see what we did and the quality and the value of the products that we had. Another way to maintain and keep good customers is to, what I would say, make an irresistible offer. So what does that offer entail? Well, it might be some sort of guarantee about your product. So offer a lenient, straightforward refund policy. Make sure it's easy to understand. Leave out all the legal jargon. Showcase what it requires for eligibility and clearly outline any deadlines or options. And then, if you can, offer some sort of bulletproof guarantee that the product expectations. And the whole point behind this is the more customers that feel protected from risk of either buying your product or doing business with you, the more positive they view your firm. And the reality is that very, very, very few customers will take you up on this. If you buy products in a retail grocery store, and one of the panels on the label says, here's our customer experience, you're going to love this product or we'll refund your money. Okay, they can't guarantee that the person buys it, doesn't like the taste of it. But what they're saying is that we stand behind the product and we're willing to either replace it or give you your money back if you're not satisfied. And so there is that value in doing that. And the whole point here is that that's how you build customer loyalty. So going back to my suggestion of surveying your customers, use those surveys to focus on if there are some common complaints, and then how can you come up with solutions to some of those common complaints. So maybe prioritize some of the most common concerns according to the frequency that you see, and then group them if possible into themes and improvement categories, and then brainstorm ways of how to handle those concerns that customers have. And that's the way that you can ramp up your ability to address those concerns that customers have. As we wrap up here, a couple of final thoughts. I would challenge you and your employees to appreciate the power of yes. So when customers have a reasonable request, tell them you can do it and then figure out how to deliver. So look for ways to make it easy to do business with you. You a little bit, but the additional loyalty that you get and the word of mouth that you get from people that are treated right will more than pay for the cost of saying yes to follow up on something. The last slide that I have here is some resources that we've written a couple of columns for Manager's Notebook. One in February, March 2015, just specifically on applying exceptional customer service. And then we also did one a number of years ago on how surveys can enhance your business. And then there was this book called Prescription for Cutting Costs, Loyal Relationships. And you go, how would having loyal relationships cut cost? Well, if you have loyal customers, it can reduce these costs of doing business, and that will flow to your bottom line. And also, perhaps you can reduce some of your marketing budget because you're relying on word of mouth from people. And so there is significant value in that. So with that, I will wrap up and say thank you for listening. Hopefully you found some points in the presentation today that you can apply to your business. And I would open it up for any questions. So start typing away in the chat function, and Elise will share those with me.
Yeah, thank you very much, John, for that presentation. And as he mentioned, folks, we use the chat window for questions. So I will give it a few minutes for people to answer their questions or to ask their questions. And thank you, John, for answering the question that our registrant emailed me earlier in the week. I will make a comment. As I was listening to your presentation, I thought about harvest coming up. And when you mentioned how you make a point to memorize your student's name and get to know them right off at the bat at the beginning of the semester, how great is it to provide the same level of customer service to your producer customers and get to know them on a name basis and ask about their family and provide that personal touch. I think that this is a great time of year to start that service. And let me just go ahead and check the chat window here. No questions so far. You're talking about email surveys and paper surveys as well. Do you have any thoughts on using social media for surveys? They have options on Facebook, for example, to do a 1 or 2 question survey. Any thoughts on that?
So great point, Elise. If there are ways to gather information is valuable in a lot of different contexts. And so your point about Facebook or Instagram, and I will say even in Zoom, there is an opportunity to poll people. And so think of questions that you could ask that you want to know the answer to. And I think any way that you can gather that information is valuable. I think it is important, though, to try to figure out a way to capture that information so that you can file it away and then determine how to act on it. I know that, well, I'll give you a great example. I had a faculty meeting yesterday. I had 35 faculty. We had to take a couple of votes. And so we did a survey via Zoom. It captured all that information and we had it. So I think your point is very, and particularly, if you've got somebody that's running your Facebook page, throw a couple questions out there and gather some information. It would be a good way to track people over time, and hopefully would not take much time and effort and would be relatively costless money-wise. So you're muted. There you go.
Thanks for that, John. Even if there's someone in the organization who has time to do a phone survey, I would think that would be valuable as well.
Yes.
Great. In the chat, we have someone mentioning that they're putting together a customer survey right now. And I hope today's presentation gave you a few more thoughts, Chrissy. I was asked if the presentation will be recorded, and it is being recorded. I will email that to everyone participating today, as well as the links that John referred to and the articles that he pointed out at the end of his presentation.
So Chrissy's got another question there.
Yeah.
So you said, Chrissy, that your customers usually talk to you or they talk to their salesman, but what's the best way to ask how the contact is between yourself and the salesman? So I'm not sure exactly understand. Are you asking, how the relationship is with your salesperson and the customer, or how the relationship is with the customer and you as customer service lead? Well, I'll be real blunt. Just ask them. So in the teaching world, we call that student evaluation of instruction. And at the end of the semester, we give our students a questionnaire. What'd you like about the class? What'd you not like about the class? Are there things that the instructor did that were not helpful or distracted? And so I think that, it's kind of like a 360 evaluation, if you've ever had one of those, where they ask all of the people that do business with you and, what the experience is. So I think it's okay to self-reflect and say that, here I'm asking questions about either my salesperson's relationship with you or my relationship with you. What would you like to improve? Are there things that I could do better?
Great. John, looks like we've got another question. How do you get customers to answer surveys when you send them out? Do you suggest offering a prize?
Yeah, so Sherry is asking that. Sometimes I think you may need to provide an incentive, and you can try different things. I mean, if you look at response rates, so my wife worked for a survey group for a long time. They felt good if they had a 25 or 30% response rate. So you can monitor that. You can try sending out a couple surveys without an incentive, see what your response rate is, then providing an incentive and see if that boosts your response rate. And so, it's that cost versus benefit. There are sometimes easy ways to do that. Maybe if you respond to the survey, you get a % off on a certain line of products, where if they don't come in and take advantage of that, it doesn't cost you anything, rather than sending them some swag from your business or something like that, where you actually have to send it out. But I think offering an incentive generally will improve response rates, but not always.
Sure. What about open-ended questions versus the multiple choice or yes/no answers?
So I think that kind of goes to survey methodology. I will say, in my experience, and both having done surveys as a social scientist, as an ag economist, it is easier to get people to answer close-in questions where they've got specific choices, because they don't have to think near as hard. But I will also say that oftentimes closed-ended questions will not get at the sort of things that you're looking for. So generally, if you're doing a survey, if you can have a combination of both, the people that are most interested, and oftentimes those will be people in the tails of the distribution, either people that really love you or people that really don't like you, that will fill out those open-ended questions. But I think that there should be a mix of both in surveys. And then I think the bottom line is make sure that it, regardless of the type of questions that you ask, don't make it too long or too onerous for them to fill out. In fact, Chrissy was asking how many questions is too many. Again, if you follow my recommendation of trying to send out several surveys throughout the year, maybe quarterly or something like that, play around with it. And so you can, if you have let's say if you have 20 question survey and you 15% response, and then you've got a 5-question survey and it bumps up to 25%. Well, maybe that tells you that people are willing to take the time to answer those shorter surveys rather than the longer ones. So, if you make a commitment to try and gather that information over time, not only do you have a profile of how things change, encourage that you ask some consistent questions every time, so that you have a guide of how they change over time.
Sure. Last question here from Sherry. We have, do you send the same survey to all customers, or do you have personalized surveys?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you were hoping to gather some what we call longitudinal or long-term data, you need to send it to the same set of people. If you're just interested in kind of surveying your general population, then it maybe doesn't matter quite as much. The concern that people that are in the business of just doing surveys, so I served for a number of years on the National Agricultural Statistics Service board. And one of the concerns that they had of gathering agricultural statistics, which included the ag census, was something that they call survey fatigue. Okay, survey fatigue occurs when people get tired of filling out surveys. So that gets exactly to your question, Sherry. I think there's a balance, asking people for their opinions and bugging them too much. I think if I was a manager of a feed mill, maybe twice a year would be good for all of your customers. And then maybe another 2 times a year, you send it out to a random sample of customers. So you don't want people to get the survey where they go, oh no, another survey from so-and-so, and they throw it in the trash. You want them to respond. And so there is a balance there.
Another question here. Should we make the surveys anonymous? There's a debate that they're having at Chrissy's workplace.
Oh, so that one has no right answer. It's kind of like the response that I gave previously in terms of gathering information about yourself. Sometimes people are afraid to be really honest by saying, oh, the person that I'm complaining about or I have a concern about is going to read this. The flip side of that is I want to know what I need to do to improve what I'm doing. And so when I read those student evaluations of teaching and somebody said, oh, when you do this, I don't like it, I would try to make a change there. So I don't think that there's a right answer there, Chrissy. I'm fairly certain, I can't cite the statistics, but if you make a survey anonymous, it will bump the response rate a bit because people are more free to share their thoughts. I guess it also depends on the type of questions that you're asking. So if it's general things that are probably not very controversial or that are going to be really complaint driven, then I would say you could have it not be anonymous. One way to handle that also, I'm sure many of the people on the webinar have taken surveys where you have an opportunity to fill in your information, contact information or not. And so that gives the customer the choice. If they want to provide the information, they can. If they don't want to provide it, they don't have to. The other thing that sometimes has some value, and you might have to be a little creative, but I know sometimes an incentive for filling out a survey is getting the results of that survey back. And when you do a customer service survey, you may not want to share that with other groups, but there may be some questions that you ask in that survey that might be of value to your customers, and you might consider how you might share that as an incentive for them to participate in it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time today, John. That is all the time that we have for questions today. I want to thank everyone who joined today and participated. I appreciate the dialogue that we had here. I want to thank Walinga, our sponsor, and please be sure to visit our website, live.feedandgrain.com, to learn more about the rest of our webinar series. And you all have a great day. Thank you. Bye.